To everyone watching, good evening. I'm Sue Flykop, a trained moderator from the League of Women Voters of Wayland. The League is a nonpartisan grassroots organization working to protect and expand voting rights and ensure everyone is represented in our democracy. We empower voters and defend democracy through advocacy, education, and litigation at the local, state, and national levels. We're a membership organization open to all people who subscribe to its purpose and policies. Women in the name of the organization is a legacy that pays tribute to the veterans of the women's suffrage movement, who were our founders over 100 years ago, and to the many women who inspire us all to make democracy work. This forum is part of our ongoing voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions about at the upcoming elections. We hope that over the course of this program, you will learn more about the two candidates running for one 5-year term on the Redevelopment Authority and the 3 candidates for the Select Board. We will start with the Select Board. So we have 3 candidates, but first I am going to go through the rules, the procedures in the forum, which each candidate received beforehand. So each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement, 1.5 minutes to answer each question, and 1.5 minutes for a closing statement. Opening statements will be done in alphabetical order, and closing statements will be done in reverse alphabetical order. The League has compiled the questions, and every candidate will be asked the same questions. I will rotate the order of who answers a question first. The moderator, the time clock, and the candidates will be spotlighted on Zoom and always visible. The clock will change color with 15 seconds remaining, and please finish your sentence when you see the stop on the clock. If you continue speaking after the stop is visible, I'll say thank you and move on to the next speaker. The questions will be listed in the chat section for the candidates and those who are viewing on Zoom. Personal references about other candidates or specific people are out of order. And for the audience, this forum is being recorded. A recording will be available on StoughtonTV.com and Stoughton Media Access channels, Comcast 8 and 1073 HD and Verizon 28. For the Zoom audience, please mute yourself and remain muted. If you prefer not to be seen, please turn off your video. All right, so beginning with the Select Board, there are 3 candidates for one 3-year term on the Select Board, and the election is on April 8th, so keep that in mind. We have 3 candidates here tonight. The candidates are Robert Kirby, Joseph Mokrisky, and John Stagnoni. So we're going to start in alphabetical order with opening statements. Robert, you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Hi, I'm Robert Kirby. I've been a Stoughton resident for 25 years. My wife and I raised our daughter here, who attended the Hanson School. Also, our granddaughter is here, and we plan to be here for a long time. Last few years, I joined the town meeting rep and have tried to serve the community. And I've been involved in a number of other movements to try to make our voice known as a taxpayer here in Stoughton. And I chose to run for candidate after speaking with many of the residents in town. They were quite unsatisfied with the direction of the town and some of the leadership amongst the leaders of the town. And they were looking for someone that would champion fiscal responsibility and making the town affordable for the residents that live here, and were concerned about public safety and also the non-urbanization of the town. And I hope to talk more about these different facets of my priorities as a Select Board candidate.
Thank you. Joseph Mokrisky, 1 minute to you. We can't hear you, Joe. You're muted.
Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you. No problem.
No, thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for having this forum. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Joe Mokrisky. I'm a lifelong member of the town of Stoughton and born and raised in the neighborhood that I now live in as well. You can see the back of my house, my old house of where I live now. Raised both of my sons, Michael and Brian, went through Stoughton schools, and they are the light of my life. I'm running for re-election because I believe that I have been that voice for the town of Stoughton, to be that person that gets things done. I've always taken the challenge as I know we can do better. And, I kind of like all these little sayings that you hear. And one I've always liked is to be the future, we have to create our future. I'm very proud of my record of delivering results. We ended a 32-year conversation about a fire station and made it come to reality. I've brought revenue into the town in the tune of $2.7 million in a logistics park and ended the financial paying by the residents of funding the golf course. It's self-funded and making money on a regular basis.
Thank you. And John, 1 minute to you.
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this event for us. I'm John Stagnoni. I'm candidate for the Board of Selectmen. I have been a resident of Stoughton for 36 years. My wife is a lifelong resident of Stoughton. My wife, Roberta. We have 2 adult children and 4 grandchildren. I have been served on many boards and committees throughout the years within the town. I was the president of 3 nonprofits at the same time until recently. And I have served on the planning board for 9 years, cable advisory committee, and I was a selectman back in 2010. I am running for the board because I think the current board is out of touch with the public. The budgets have increased more than around 25% in the last 4 years, a lot higher than any inflation rate, more than twice the inflation rates of going today. So I ask for your vote and support on April 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with questions. These have been submitted by people and vetted by the league. Joe, we're going to start with the question to you first. And it is, where do you stand on the building of the new elementary school to replace the South and Wilkins?
I'm in favor of building the school. This has been an issue that we've dealt with in Stoughton for a lot of years, where these important issues like the fire station can never get any traction. We always find a way to figure a new way to do things, which derails it. And we have to stop kicking the can down the road. The voters will decide this ultimately on which way they want to go. But this is definitely needed for the town. There's no 2 ways about it. How we decide to fund it may change depending on how the vote is. And both of those votes are still going to be resulting in we need a South school. So I've always been in favor of getting this done. As a matter of fact, that several years back, when a previous member of the select board tried to kill the South School project by going behind people's backs, independent of the Board of Selectmen and the school department, I was the one that brought it out in the public, because that's not government. That's personal agendas, and there's no room for personal agendas when you're sitting on the select board. So I will still stand by everything to get the school built. It just depends on how it's going to be funded based on this upcoming vote.
Okay, thank you. And John, the question to you.
Thank you. Yes, I support the New South School project. I have been a supporter. I've actually gone in front of the select board trying to get them to change their policy or position by trying to get them to use part of the general fund, the new growth that we're going to be experiencing in the next year or so from the North Stoughton Logistics Park, to offset the impact to the residents. The select board has resisted to take that up in public and has resisted to make any discussions on that. I think it's important that we listen to the voters. The first time around, they said, no, we don't want our taxes raised. Others were against the building design itself. But I think what's happened is, over the time, the Board of Selectmen has spent every penny we have. They've raised everybody's fees to exorbitant amounts. They've spent every nickel we have as far as new tax revenues and all the new growth. And it's just too much for the residents. And I think that's why a lot of them have voted no in the past. But I hope if they support it this time, if I get on the board, I will support tax relief using new growth to help offset the increased costs of for the South School. Thank you.
Thank you. And Robert, the question to you.
I think one of the primary differences between me and the other candidates is I don't think you can have it both ways. I don't think that you can say you're for the taxpayer and at the same time vote yes for this particular project. And the reason is we can't afford to be married to this particular design because at over $900 a square foot, it's too costly for the taxpayers. Put it this way, the high school cost over $4 million a year for 20 years for the town. This project will cost the town $4 million for 30 years. That's 1.5 times the amount we spent on the high school. The high school serves every student who matriculates through the whole school program. This will only serve about a quarter of the students of the whole town student population at a much higher cost. So the economy of scale is out of whack. Recently, I saw an article that highlighted a Massachusetts neighborhood that was one of the top 10 in the country in East Sandwich, Massachusetts. And one of the things they lauded about that community was the price per square foot of these luxury homes at $433 a square foot, being the fourth most expensive in the country. This project is over twice that. It doesn't make sense. It's too expensive. We need a new school, but not at this price. We should design something more affordable for the taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. John, we're going to start with you for the next question. Do you believe Stoughton should adopt bylaws or building codes that promote more sustainable and energy efficient buildings?
Well, I think the town has already adopted the stretch code and or whatever, so that's already in play. I happened to just recently build a house here in Stoughton, and the energy codes are up there already. So it's already in play. So I'm not sure what else there is to increase them any more than they are. I think the R values are 68 now or somewhere in there. When I built it was 48, but I built it even higher than what was required for energy efficiency. But yeah, at the end of the day, anytime we can save on energy, but on the flip side, when you do that, you're also increasing costs in construction costs. And so it's, like I said, I believe Stoughton is already following the codes that are in place, which is the stretch codes, and it's already energy efficiency built in.
Okay, thank you. And Robert, the question to you.
I think that, as John said, we follow the codes as they exist. I think there's a danger in over-regulating the kinds of standards that conform to particular climate activism. There's been a lot of push in that more recently, and that poses a burden. For example, one egregious thing is the electric vehicle standards that have been promulgated by the Healy administration for the state. Now they're punting that off for a year. But these things they trickle down to the municipalities like Stoughton. And when we start buying into them, we put onerous costs on businesses, we put it on the town. So we have to be careful and keep a balance. Of course, we want to be energy efficient, but we also have to employ common sense. When we start buying into like ideological frameworks that put unrealistic burdens on the municipal operations, then we're crossing a line that I think is to the detriment of the town. So we have to be balanced. Yes, energy efficiency makes sense. We need that. But when we start to cross the line of adopting policies like mandating electric vehicles and doing all these kinds of things that are just being kind of politically correct, then we have endangered the economic operations of the town.
Okay, thank you. And Joe, the question to you.
Thank you. We are going exactly where we're supposed to be on energy codes. The state just recently, about a week ago, had put out a new housing plan that actually addresses that again. And the plan is, if it were to go, it basically will take all of our zoning, in our neighborhoods and just throw them out the window. They've already changed by right that you don't have to go into the zoning board and get a variance to put an addition onto your home. And it doesn't have to be owner occupied. Years back, they were called in-law apartments or something. But now you can, if you've got the square footage, put a portion onto your home and rent it. But this plan that's coming up now at the state is basically going to have a huge impact on every municipality in the Commonwealth. Boston is building the Seaport District, and there's no affordable housing there. So now the state's looking to bring it out into the suburbs, and that's just the climate and issues that are around that are minimal compared to what our neighborhoods can look like with this plan. That basically in one neighborhood you could buy out the block and build 100 units in a residential neighborhood. That's the issues that are going to affect the town of Stoughton, and how we work with our state leaders and our governor to let them know that local government wants a voice, and we're going to speak up for what we want for Stoughton.
Okay, thank you. Robert, this next question is to you first. Do you believe the select board's process of initiating warrant articles, which require 45 days to convene a town meeting, is efficient? Would you recommend any charter changes?
I'm sorry, as far as the general warrant articles or for special town meetings? I missed part of the question.
I'm not qualified to answer that because I'm not a resident of Stoughton. I would assume it was general, 45 days.
No, I think the way it's done now is appropriate. 45 days is fine. So sometimes for example, the fact that we're nesting some special town meetings within the context of the overall town meeting is a little bit unusual, but by and large, I would say that the town manages the warrant articles very well. The select board has done a good job as far as presenting that, and the timeline. I don't see a problem with that at all.
Okay, thank you. And John, the question to you next.
Yeah, so from what I can see from being a town meeting rep for about 15 plus years previously, the process seems to work. I think the timeline seems to work for the committees. And so, right now, and I haven't been part of any debates or discussion. I don't know if the charter review is looking at this, and this is why this question came up. But as far as I can tell, that, the timeline seems to be working okay. And we've always seemed to be able to meet town meeting in the process and follow the process with the 45 days in place.
Okay, thank you. And Joe, you have the last word on this question.
Yes, I think that it's been working fine. The town meeting process is defined in the town charter, so anything we change from would take that vote to update the charter. But it does go back as well. Thankfully, we're doing it because there were times where articles were placed basically where the current chairman wanted them. You could have yours come in first. It wouldn't be the first article. It was basically put, wherever they wanted it. And there were in the past articles that were submitted by residents, and they were in the top 5, we'll say, coming in, were filed with the clerk's office, but went to the last article of town meeting because the chair didn't want it there. So thankfully, we're away from that, and let's not go back to those days. But I believe the system is working fine. I've never heard anybody complain about it other than the amount of articles that come out once in a while. But that's what our government is. And the legislative body goes through warrant articles. So the only way we'd have to change that would be to change the form of government.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, Joe, you're going to start with this one. Given that cannabis stores are at our borders in Avon and Brockton, should we allow them in Stoughton and gain the tax revenue?
In the right places, yes. Simple answer, yes. We should take every form of revenue that we can get. These places are not known to have any crime around them. I guess if you can put the analogy, it's like a liquor store, and now it's legalized, and why not? Why pass up the revenue?
Thank you. And Robert, the question to you next.
No, I'm actually against the cannabis stores in general. I think that it's an unfortunate circumstance that we have them in such prolific numbers all around us. We have them on all our borders. And I think that this, unfortunately, is going to trickle down to our youth. There's many health problems with cannabis use. And I'm just not in favor of the abuse that comes with the expansion of the ready access to it. I think Stoughton is well served to just keep it on the edges. The more you put it on your main street, the more access it has to youth and other people that will gain access through illicit means, and it'll just become another sad circumstance for our youth in Stoughton. So I'm not in favor.
Okay, thank you. And John, question to you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I have no problem with the, cannabis being marketed here in town, particularly where you can go and right over the border and get it. And I would support in the correct zoning, places that you could actually grow, the grow houses in town as well. It's an industry that's growing, across the country. I have a friend who owns a cannabis store. Regulations are very tight. The requirements on the buildings and the security and everything else is very tight here in Massachusetts. Some would say we're actually, too strict. It's been a good revenue for some of these other communities. But also, like I said, there's still plenty of people buying it on the street, over the black market. There's people buying, like I said, leaving town and buying it. So it's not like the residents don't have a place to go get it, but I would be in favor of it, in the right places and things. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, Robert, you're going to start with this next question. 50 communities, both larger and smaller, have their own municipal power companies and/or cable. Given the high costs of these utilities, do you think Stoughton should pursue such a plan?
Well, I haven't even considered this, but I think it would be worth studying it. If we could make it more cost effective for our taxpayers, absolutely, I would be in favor. A feasibility study would have to run to see if it's really plausible. But I'm not sure what infrastructure that we could really rely on. We don't have access to hydroelectric power or things like that. I mean, they'd probably be looking at solar farms or windmills, and those things, unfortunately, they're not energy dense or efficient to actually give you the bang for the buck that you want for the amount of real estate that is required and their environmental impact. I mean, windmills come with a plethora of problems when it comes to the bird populations and everything else, the maintenance. They're a blight in a lot of respects. And solar farms are going to be obsolete after 20 plus years. And then you have the environmental waste to consider in disposing of these things, and they're weather contingent. So I think if we were going to look at something like using the quote unquote renewable energy sources, probably wouldn't pan out for us. But, if there was some other means, I think, sure, why not? But I don't see it as an imminent need.
Okay, thank you. And John, the question to you.
Yeah, I guess my first impression would be is no. I don't think the town should get into the power plant business. One is location. We're running out of places for industrial land and places to put things, and there's always going to be somebody saying not in my backyard. But the cost, I think, is the most thing that would stop us from building something like this. I just don't see today for the number of residents and people we're serving, that it would be cost beneficial, and it would help us keep lower rates. The town is now has joined into a plan, and the residents can sign up for a good rate that's typically lower than national grid rate. And I actually just got I just switched my service supplier as well, was to direct, and we're actually cheaper than the town. And they're all energy efficient. So I think the market belongs to the people that actually do this for a living at this point. Like I said, I think it's just too expensive to build and move on. But, I think the town did miss on an opportunity. When I was on the board, we got the solar plant, the things up by BJ's on the old dump, and the town missed out on an opportunity to have a long-term contract for that power.
Okay, thank you. And Joe, the question to you.
Sure, thank you. Well, back around 95, I believe, it may have been earlier, we did a study in that, and under the leadership of then Superintendent of Public Works, Larry Barrett, and it was found to be cost prohibitive for what we would need to do. Our infrastructure wouldn't meet what we needed to. It was going to cost us millions of dollars, and then for what we were going to get on the return on investment, it just wasn't worth it. I don't know if that's changed. But I guess I'm always open to anything that's going to save us money, because people always say, my taxes, my taxes. Well, I pay the same taxes that we all do, and I pay all the fees as well, just like you all do. And when you're sitting on the board, it'd be nice to be able to vote yourself, a reduction in your taxes. And I did want to use my time just on the previous question of the cannabis. There's only one place we could put them in Stoughton, and that's on Tosca Drive. It's an industrial area. So we were thinking at the time so that we didn't have them popping up everywhere. So on the option of revenue, again, it's not what I do, but it's the same as if you're going to the liquor store and they're on all the corners. You can get those in many more places than we could get, the cannabis if it did come to town.
Okay, thank you. John, we're going to have a new question and you're going to go first. In December, the Stoughton Town Manager presented on municipal solid waste, warning of a looming management crisis as Massachusetts's landfills approach capacity, potentially requiring trash to be transported out of state. What are the key challenges and how can the Select Board and residents respond?
Thank you for the question. That's a really good one, and I know it's dear and close to a lot of the residents, and everybody's going to be watching this in the near future. So I think that the town manager has taken the correct approach. They're looking at everything, first. They're bringing this to everybody's attention, not waiting until this current CMAS contract is up. And they're going to go out and do a lot of legwork. I actually offered to the town manager and the head of the superintendent of the DPW a new trash transfer station that's proposed to be built in Holbrook. It's right on the rail and could be an option for us to be looking at. It's a lot closer than going to Rochester. Maybe if you get in on the ground floor, there's a better, we could get better pricing, similar to what we did with CMAS, because we were one of the original towns when CMAS first opened up. But there's a lot to study, understand, see where it's going. But I wouldn't be a fan of going and privatizing. I think, you can look at it, but everything I've seen from other towns and the costs and what our costs are right now to deliver services, we're still cheaper than privatized companies. So thank you.
Thank you. And Joe, the question to you.
Yes, well, in my private sector job, I was very close and had contracts that I hauled trash for companies that went into CMAS. And I've been involved with the CMAS contract for many years. And it's not right now what we're dealing with is the trash going out. But right now, when you burn trash, a fly ash product comes out of it. And right now, CMAS takes that fly ash from their plant to their landfills, but they don't have much longer with that. So that's the beginning of it, is CMAS themselves has to find a place out of state because there's no landfills. It'll take the fly ash as it is. So that's just the start of it. And the fly ash would probably be the same thing, put on rails at another transfer station. And there's a newer rail system that comes out of the Cape and runs up along the backside of the Bay Road area, comes out. It could run into Boston, where it then gets put on rail that goes out all over the country. So that's the beginning, and that's where we're looking at it. If CMAS is having a problem to get rid of their fly ash, what's that going to bring? We have 5 years left in our contract, and we have not just a good contract, we have the best contract of all the sitting communities of CMAS that we negotiated at the beginning of the last one. It included that if anybody got a lower rate than us, we got that plus 5%. So we're going to continue to be on top of this issue and work closely with the CMAS people and do what's right for Stoughton.
Thank you. And Robert, to you.
I know that there's been a talk, and the town manager seems to be in favor of privatizing and outsourcing this problem entirely. But like John and Joe, I think all of us are probably in agreement that we don't want to privatize here. And I think that Stoughton is well served by keeping our DPW handling all of our needs, because we're growing and adapting and cross-utilizing within our infrastructure for schools and everything. So we need to strengthen and enhance our DPW and not gut it by outsourcing and really crippling what I think will be the services to the town. So I'm not in favor of privatization. We can look at enhancing our contracts and, as John said, doing a study to see if we can make it more efficient. But right now, we are running quite efficiently, and I think we need to stay away from privatization.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is we'll start with Joe. The tragic death of Sandra Birchmore exposed criminal and moral issues within the Stoughton Police Department that have been going on for years. Has the department implemented sufficient reforms to prevent such events from happening in the future?
Well, again, that is something that we don't, as selectmen, get all that information. What happened was tragic. The people that made the decisions they made are appalling and should be convicted, from what I've heard. I don't know all the details. Our police department right now is running very well. I don't believe that can happen, but we've got to remember, this wasn't the police department. This was individuals. It doesn't, in a minute, if anything, diminish our police department and what they've been doing. We have a great police department. We continue to win awards. You know, our officers, our deputy chiefs and chiefs, they're getting awards and being recognized for the level of law enforcement. But we can't control the people of Stoughton, the select board, the town manager, police chief, when somebody makes a horrible decision on their own. And I don't like it at all when we just paint the wide brush and say the police department has an issue. No, those people that made those decisions, those are the people, and they're not here. And we acted on those people as fast as we could. And a couple of them, they resigned on their own because they knew, you know. And so I'll stand by. We have a good police department, and it's moving forward. And if we see somebody that's doing the same thing, they're going to be gone too.
Okay, thank you. And Robert, the question to you next.
I think the police department has done an incredible job of reforming by order of the personnel that are involved. We have an outstanding force. They're doing a crack job. They really have taken a hold on the issues in Stoughton. We've kind of augmented our package to the police by the recent education allowance that made it more competitive. So now we're seeing more attractiveness to get new transfers and so forth. So our personnel has really risen, and we're now a competitive police force. And I think the whole character and the morale of the police is at a higher level than it's ever been. We have a good police chief, and I don't think we should let the detractors and the persons that are responsible for this whole unfortunate affair take down the morale and the image of the Stoughton police. It's been trashed in the past, but I think we need to put it behind us and look forward, because we have really an outstanding crew right now.
Okay, thank you. And John, the question to you.
Yes, this is just, a horrific tragedy, and words just can't make me feel as bad as, for the family and everything that transpired. I got to say, thank God for Chief McNamara. She didn't let this go. She insisted on an investigation. It was her determination and hard work, and Deputy Chief Holmes at the time and others that were involved in the investigation and not letting this go and then bringing it to the FBI that has brought this forward. Even know that it's a black eye on the department as a whole, why there is individuals, but it affects the whole department's image and it affects the town as a whole as well. So I got to give Chief McNamara for her leadership on this. Big kudos. We were fortunate to have her and the staff following through to do the right thing. And hopefully this will end up, with the right results that everybody thinks it should be. Unfortunately, one of the, people that are involved in this, he actually wouldn't be with the town a lot at the time for many years ago when I was on the board. He was to be fired, but unfortunately the police chief at that time wouldn't listen to the town manager and wait for discipline. And therefore that person was still here to keep doing what he was doing.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're on our last question. And Robert, you're going to go first with this. What is your approach to working with the Stoughton Diversity and Inclusion Organization?
Well, I don't have an agenda as far as diversity and inclusion goes. I think that I would like to focus on merit-based appointments to various positions. I think that too often when we play identity politics, we're diminishing the attainment of people who have really qualified for it. So I think we need to have a colorblind and race blind and gender blind vantage point when we seek candidates for offices, or whether we want personnel for particular departments, or whether we need people on committees. So the diversity and equity thing, I'm not super in favor of it. I think that we need a merit-based system, and the best person, whether, like Chief McNamara is an excellent police chief, and her gender should have nothing to do with it. She qualifies for the job. So we don't need to plug people into places just because they fit a particular profile. I'd like to get away from that, frankly. I think we want merit-based approaches to putting people into positions. So I'm not particularly keen on diversity and equity and inclusion from that standpoint.
Okay, thank you. And Joe, the question to you next.
Yeah, well, when we started the diversity program, I was proud to be out in front of it because it seemed to be that we needed some structure as to how we did things, but it all comes down to hiring the best person. And Stoughton has always been diverse. We've always had equity. We've always had people of color. Back when DEI wasn't even heard of, we had a black female police officer, a black black male, a black firefighter. We didn't have women on the fire department yet, and I'm glad they're here. But I think that we have always been diverse in Stoughton. So I would look at us as a trailblazer. And, I don't like labels, period. But I also know sometimes that we need to up our game a little bit and make it easier. We found ourselves advertising differently than we've done in the past, which did bring in more candidates. Some of them weren't qualified, and then some, they didn't apply at all. So, that's where I believe we should be hiring the best person, no matter where they come from, what they look like, and get the best people. But we did step up our game, and I think we should always do that to make sure that we're advertising so we get diverse candidates. We want everybody to apply, the best candidates everywhere. And if we're not advertising in the right place, we won't get those.
Okay, thank you. And John, the question to you.
Yes, I echo the same sentiment. We should be hiring people based on their qualifications. And I think the town has made some strides in diversifying its employment, in town hall and across the other departments. Because we should represent, look and represent what the town makeup is as well. But I think, again, people need to be hired based on merit as well, not just because of their gender or their color or their skin or anything else or their religion. I think that's just, it's not a good practice. So we've, I just don't, I'd rather, when somebody gets hired for the position, when I was on the board, we hired an interim town manager, Stoughton resident Joseph Feaster. He's a person of color. We hired him because of his talents and things, not because he was colored. But it kind of bothers me a little bit to say, oh, he's the first person of color that was the town manager in the town of Stoughton. I look at him as a person that was well qualified to do the job. He took us to where we needed it to be. And that's why we put him in the position we did. And, I think that's the way we should hire everybody.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're done with questions, so congratulations on that. We're ready to go to our closing statements, which will be in the reverse order from the way we started. And there'll be a minute and a half. So we're going to start with you, John, for a minute and a half. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this event tonight. Very much appreciated. I hope the vote to win the support of the voters here on April 8th for the select board. As I have said, some of the things I'm running for is to try to give tax relief to the residents, especially if the South School project passes. I think the town is overspent on the revenues and then what we have coming in. I think we've 25% increase in 4 years is just, the budgets are just blowing out of proportion. I think the select board and the administration is out of touch with the residents. I like to see us put policies in place for the assessor's office. It took me almost 6 years to finally get several properties reviewed. Select board never replied and looked into this matter. 2 of the properties alone were underassessed by $40 million plus, not including the other ones. I want to work with the Redevelopment Authority on implementing the urban renewal plan. It's for the downtown. Right now, it's currently stalled. The town's affordable housing plan is currently expired and is in limbo for probably the last 10 years. And there's a lot of blight in the downtown and throughout the town. And I want to have a task force to set that up. And again, I ask for your support and your vote on April 8th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Joe, a minute and a half to you.
Thank you. And thank you again to the League of Women Voters for having this event. And I've always said, we can accomplish great things when we work together. I hear about taking revenue and putting it right to an issue. Well, you can't earmark money to go to any issue. When new growth comes in, new revenue, it goes to the general fund by law. It cannot be diverted to a project. So that's number one, is we have to abide by all of our laws that say how our revenue is coming in and how it's spent. I'm going to focus on bringing revenue in. I've been honored, to have the trust of the Stoughton residents for many years, and you allowing me to serve as your select board member. I've always worked hard to be an independent thinker with a collaborative team approach. We get more done working as a team. We should never lose sight of the fact that we serve an elected office for the betterment of our entire town. Not, in local government, we should never be used as a political battlefield, but more of a drafting table for the future. And we have all these people that got all these great ideas, but then they just can't put them together and succeed at it. We got to maintain the best police and fire we ever can, meeting the needs of our veterans who served our country, helping those who are retired and live on fixed incomes, providing the highest level of education for our children. They're our future. Finding new sources of revenue to ease the burden of the taxpayers. I've done that. I brought in a new vendor at the golf course, which ended up being funded by the taxpayers. It now funds itself and has $1.4 million in retained earnings. We got a fire station built.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
It's time to wrap up. Okay. And Robert Kirby, a minute and a half to you.
First, I would like to thank the League of Women's Voters for hosting us. There's 3 things that I would like to put forward. in order to meet the challenges of the fiscal management, the capital expenditures, and things that we have on the horizon, we need to put into place fiscal policies like the GFOA standards as lauded by the state for best practices in terms of financial management. When we have a budget, we can plan and forecast much more appropriately, but we in Stoughton have been just having a free-for-all every year in a money grab as our taxes ratchet up and up and up. And two projects that have exemplified these challenges are the South School project. Only in 2017, when the school plan was put out and then revised with numbers in 2023, they were looking at $43 million for the South School replacement. It ballooned up to $114 million. And despite the MSBA money, it's still going to cost us 1.5 times the cost of the high school. Too much. Where were the voices pushing back on this before it came to the town for a vote? Secondly, the Hebrew Life Center was proposed just up the street from me. They wanted to put 200 units with a 6-story building. We pushed back and got it down to 100 units, something much more palatable. And that's part of the non-urbanization that I would like to advocate for in Stoughton.
Thank you. I want to thank all three candidates. Voters, you will be choosing one of these three candidates for a seat on the select board. Thank you, Robert Kirby, Joe McCrisky, and John Stagnoni. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we are ready to switch to our candidates. We have two candidates for one seat on the Stoughton Redevelopment Authority. We have Rachel Lazarus and Jonna Rosenblatt. So Jonna, if you could show your video.
Hello, everyone.
Go on video. Hi. Jonna, are you there? All right. Well, while we're waiting for Jonna, I will just.
I just got it unmuted. It wasn't working. I'm so sorry.
Okay, that's
It's
fine.
working
Thank
now.
you.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So the Stoughton Redevelopment Authority, or SRA, was established in 1963 pursuant to a vote of town meeting and the filing of a certificate of organization with the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The enabling legislation for the Redevelopment Authority is Mass General Law, Chapter 121B. The SRA bylaws were updated and revised in September of 2014. The present focus of the SRA is the redevelopment of downtown Stoughton. Working in concert with the Select Board and the Planning Board, the SRA is well positioned to be the agency of change to improve the physical conditions and aesthetics of our town center. So as I mentioned, we have two candidates for one seat, Rachel Lazarus and Jonna Rosenblatt. And we follow the same rules as before, 1 minute of opening statements, 1.5 minutes for each question, and then 1.5 minutes for closing. So we are going to go again in alphabetical order, and we will start with Rachel. So 1 minute to you, Rachel.
Very quickly, I want to thank Jonah and the 3 select board candidates because I had a family emergency very early on, and I'm so grateful that they managed to accommodate me. Thank you, League of Women Voters. Hi, I moved to Stoughton in 2016 with my husband. We have 3 kids, 2 of them at the Gibbons. The youngest one really wants to ride the bus. And before moving here, I received my master's in public policy from the University of Chicago, focusing on cost-benefit analysis and program evaluation, which is a very fancy way of saying that I have been trained by extremely fiscally conservative experts on how to get the government to do the most public good while spending as little taxpayer money as possible, how to do the research that finds the cheapest way to accomplish those goals, and how to know if a program is worth the money that it costs the taxpayers. I have always wanted to live in a place where I could use my specific set of skills of research and writing to advocate for good policies and see things change. And this is a town where one person really can make a difference. And I'm so happy that I get to live here.
Thank you. And John, 1 minute to you.
Thank you, and thank you for the League of Women Voters. I am a longtime resident of Stoughton. I am on FinCom and a town meeting rep. I have a master's degree from Harvard. I've been board of directors for 2 nonprofits. I have a real estate license and was a dental consultant for 2 fledgling companies that I made lucrative again. And I feel that these aforementioned skills would transfer very well to the SRA, and I want a town that I can live in, just like everyone else, that we want the best for our town. I feel like having new blood in the SRA would help them grow positively. And I'm very much interested in the ubiquitous 15-minute cities model of changing towns to cities, and I would be an asset as I, along with many others, were instrumental in getting a 6-story building in the heart of a residential neighborhood reduced to 3 stories to maintain aesthetics and reduce traffic. And the primary issue is the resolution of the URP, and to see where the selectmen stand on the urban renewal plan. That is really the crux of the issues.
Thank you. Well, we're going to get into some questions now. So, Jonna, we'll start with you. How do you think the town can increase business to offset the expenses to the taxpayers?
Well, that seems to be a long, ongoing problem with all the holes we've had in the town. With the theater and the other housing new development that we have in there, it just seems to be something that Stoughton always has to contend with. I really feel that even at the depot, at the railroad depot, that's another thing that's been sitting there. The armory, it just seems to be something that we're always contending with, and I feel like we're always in limbo and we're never moving forward. And that's what has prompted me to get on to the SRA. I really would like to get together and try to move things forward and work with the other people, because we just have not been doing that. We have been making plans and then following through, or there's a lot of roadblocks. And until we really get somebody in there that's going to move things forward, I think that things are just going to be at a standstill. So I would start working probably with the theater, because that's been there for a long time, and maybe doing something with the railroad. Those are the 2 things that I think have been a big problem and a big blight on the town, and I think we need to move forward in doing something with those. I know that we have the senior housing that's going to be a new one, and I'm really for that, because that's the one that's going to be opening up by the senior center, the little mini houses. I think those would be excellent. That's an excellent place to start, because it's already in existence, but I think we need to add more to it by doing other projects.
Okay, thank you. And Rachel, the question to you.
The very first thing that we need to do as the Stoughton Redevelopment Authority is untable the urban relief plan or urban renewal plan. We tabled it as the SRA back in September. The select board is waiting for it. Town planner is waiting for it. The reason given was that they were told that to finish the MIPA, the environmental study that needed to be done, one person said that it would cost $50,000. It was already half done. And there are other organizations in town that could have helped. What I really think will help the town is if we get lots of different people on different committees together to share their ideas, share their needs, share their solutions to the problems. We had one for the Climate Action Plan Committee, which I am also on. And it was really great to have people from the planning board in the same room as people from the Sustainability and Energy Committee. And it was like powerful to see the 2 of them going like, well, I know a lot about trees. Well, I know a lot about compost. And like it was, and immediately, and they connected with Pam McCarthy, the economic director, and things got done. And things are getting done. So I think we have to untable the urban renewal plan. We have to send it in as is if we don't want to spend any other money on it. But we've already spent, I think, $100,000 on it. So let's get some return on investment on that taxpayer money. Otherwise, it's just going to be wasted.
Okay, thank you. Rachel, this next question is to you first. Since 2014, there have been multiple presentations and plans about redeveloping the Stoughton Town Center.
Yes.
What is the current plan and next steps, and what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, to go on, I believe that the current plan is the urban renewal plan. And until very recently, this was the primary focus of the SRA. If you go to stoughtonredevelopment.org, They have the background information, and it just completely ends at 2022. The urban renewal plan is already written in most ways. Bill Roth, the town planner, has already signed off on it. We just need to present it, and all of the plans in it, all of the work we've already done and already paid for, we can start moving ahead, but we need the urban renewal plan in order to get a couple of like dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So it just really seems like a very odd idea to table it because they thought it might cost money. And I think I like getting things right the first time. I want to carefully plan. I plan on canvassing all of the businesses currently around in the Stoughton town center. I want to ask them what they feel is missing from the town. I want to ask them what they feel would improve it, what would improve their own businesses. And I want to get people downtown. We have such a beautiful area. We have to focus on the downtown. That is what the Stoughton Redevelopment Authority does. We can't just go out in all parts of Stoughton or start different initiatives. We have to focus on what is in front of us. And I think with a little bit of focus, we can get things done.
Okay, thank you. And Jonna, the question to you.
Yes, the urban renewal plan has been stalled, and it really isn't the fault of the SRA. They have brought the plan to the planning development people, and they have asked for revisions. The revisions were made and then sent back to the planning board, and there has been no movement from there. They can't move forward on the urban renewal plan without getting these approvals, and they have to go through the the selectmen, and they also have to go through the state. There's a state agency that they have to get approval for. So when you keep running into these roadblocks, I mean, that's government, unfortunately, for you. It's not like the private sector, although there's a lot of delays in the private sector too, I have to say. But I feel that we're blaming them for that, and that really isn't their fault because it is being stalled by others. And there's also a problem too. If we don't have enough money in the SRA, then that will fall back on the taxpayers, because if they don't have enough money, it's going to fall back on the taxpayers, and that's going to increase the debt exclusions that we have, and we have enough of those. We don't need more of that. And as far as what we could do more, we don't have to have always housing and all the time. I wish we would be more diverse and in looking for other things like entertainment or other issues, or just the fact that the downtown really needs a new construction pattern. I think that would help a lot too.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. There are several questions here, and I'm just trying to figure out what is the best order for them, given your comments. Okay, so Jonna, we'll go with you first.
Mm-hmm.
So the latest presentation found that diversity of ownership and irregular lot sizes make it improbable that the area will be redeveloped by the ordinary operations of private enterprise. That's in quotes. In that case, what is the role of the SRA?
Well, the SRA, I wrote down a lot of the roles for the SRA. They want to conduct urban renewal actions in Stoughton Center. They want to establish rehabilitation and design standards. They need to acquire real estate via eminent domain sometimes. They need to demolish and rehabilitate structures. They need to undertake site preparation and environmental remediation. And they need to assemble and dispose of land for private development. They need to relocate and displace businesses, and sometimes even residents, which is not really a great thing, but that's what happens sometimes. And the businesses, they need to issue bonds and borrow monies. They need to receive grants. And a lot of these things need to be addressed and incorporated. And I feel that we're doing that, but we're not doing it to its fruition, to the end, and that's where things need to be to come to the end. And they're also, as far as on the lots being of unusual sizing and everything like that, I guess what I would have to say to that is to look at the pros and cons on that. And to, I guess, in order to fix that, what you would have,
I'm sorry.
yep, I just saw the time.
Okay, and Rachel, the question to you.
Just very quickly, I want to say that I believe that the urban renewal plan is waiting on the SRA to act because in the August 2024 minutes, they said that they were going to table it because they didn't want to pay more for MIPA. And Lisa Lyons, the person who Jonah and I are running to replace, was very upset about the idea of there being a diversity, equality, and inclusion clause in there, and wanted to keep the town a town, not a city, I believe. So what I have learned is that there are places for businesses to act. There are places for government to act. There are places when nonprofits should act. And the SRA, I think, is in a great place to bring in the businesses that would complement the center that's already there. So I don't think business can do everything alone, in the same way that I don't think government can do everything alone. That in the same way that one individual can't do everything alone. We can only make our best try, essentially. So the Stoughton Redevelopment Authority, some of it is listening to the experts and taking their advice, or when we have their advice, to see if their advice is meant for, big cities like Cambridge and Somerville and Wellesley, or if their advice is tailored towards towns like Stoughton. It is not our job to change the character of Stoughton. It is not our job to force the townspeople into supporting programs that wouldn't work here. Our job is to be good servants and to help the businesses that we want to succeed, because Stoughton succeeds then.
Okay, this next question, we'll go with Rachel first.
Mhm.
And it gets to something that actually Jonna mentioned. The 2024 plan proposes that many current businesses will need to move or relocate. Will some property have to be taken through eminent domain? And what can the town do to help these businesses and expedite their relocation if they are relocated?
Right. So, does the SRA actually have anything to do with the eminent domain? Because that's a government issue. We can't force it as businesses, I didn't think. I am not completely aware of every single business and all of their meanings. If there are businesses that we really want to stay, we should, of course, accommodate them in every way. How much are we going to be changing the town center? How does the urban renewal plan work together with the town plan, which Bill Roth kindly showed me? A lot of these are areas where we can work together and specialize in our areas much better than us going, well, we have this part and we are going to stay here and we are going to make sure only one thing happens, and we're not going to work around, and we're not going to talk to the people around us, and we're not going to really want to incorporate into the community what the community wants, as opposed to saying to the community, well, we want this business here and we want this property. And so because of this property, we're going to take it. That doesn't make sense to me. I like getting things done. I like doing a lot of planning up front, because that way you don't run into so many roadblocks, as Jonah alluded to. A lot of time when you just have a clear map out and maybe even a flow chart or something, it is a lot easier to accomplish your goals together with others.
Okay, thank you. And John, another question to you.
I take that very seriously, the aspect of eminent domain, because having 5 members be in charge of the eminent domain and getting rid of businesses or people, I think is a very serious prospect. And I think we have to have people that are going to be on the SRA that are people that we can trust to have that kind of responsibility. And as far as getting the people new positions, you want to do that for people, of course, that if you're putting them out of their homes, but I would think that would have to be a very last resort. I really don't feel comfortable with that, but I know what has to be done has to be done. Sometimes you have to make the difficult decisions. Mm-hmm. But as far as the comment about making Stoughton remain a town, I know that a lot of people feel that way. I myself feel that way, and I don't like seeing the urbanization of the town. I don't want us to become a city, and I know a lot of people feel the same way, but we're headed in that direction. And being on the SRA, we have that ability to either go in that direction and forge ahead without taking into consideration all the ramifications and looking into the trajectory. And I think a lot of people don't do that, and I would do that. And that's where I feel I would be an asset to the SRA. And I feel that as far as with the DEI, meritocracy is extremely important. You don't want to have an operation from someone who is just chosen because of the color of the skin rather than
Okay, thank you,
the
Jonna.
abilities they have.
Thank you, Jonna. Actually, it's a good segue into our next question, which is it sounds like there's a little disagreement on how this urban renewal plan has been stalled. But the question is, what are your thoughts on incorporating diversity, equity, and inclusion in downtown rehabilitation? And that's to Jonna first.
Okay, well, just as all the selectmen said in the previous segment, they all said they're really not for that per se. They want the best person for the job. So that negates DEI. And DEI has proven not to be a very valuable asset or an ideology to follow, because it is now being taken away in major corporations. It's being taken away nationally, and it's not something that you're seeing being brought forward, and it's being something that they're trying to take away. And I'm for that, because I want people to put a blindfold on. That's what Lady Liberty had, is a blindfold on. I want that to be the case. I want you to pick people. I want people to be chosen for their abilities. If you go with DEI, what you're doing is you're no better than the people that are racist that have brought this into the forefront. Because if you bring DEI, you're suppressing one group at the expense of another. And I don't believe in that. I want a blindfold on, and I want everyone to be looked at equally. And if you have the meritocracy to be the best at the job, then that's who I want. And I challenge anyone who doesn't feel that way to get an operation with somebody who is just being chosen with a DEI perspective rather than meritocracy.
Okay, thank you. Rachel?
So I'm really happy that Jonna has this great position, because I remember at one point she was asking me if I agreed with DEI, and therefore why wasn't she on the Climate Action Plan Committee, because there were no conservative voices and she was being discriminated against about that.
So
I think that DEI.
I thought we don't reference people.
I didn't realize that.
Rachel, I'm going to ask you to just focus on your own position, and don't worry, John. I'm going to give you each another 30 seconds afterwards to respond.
So I think DEI is very highly misunderstood, and a lot of the people who demonize DEI are completely not actually aware of what it is. They just know what the buzzword is that they're afraid of, in the same way that woke means something completely different in its original term and has been appropriated, essentially. So DEI is a way to put everyone on an equitable stance. You know how the easiest way to get into Harvard, the second easiest way is to have a family member who donated or who attended, and the easiest way is to have a family member who donated. That is one of those structural, institutional, racist things that really, it's not about an individual being judged on the color of their skin. It is, you don't even realize what a high ladder someone else has on. And DEI, in its purest intent and its intention, is to remove everyone, not remove everyone from ladders, boost everyone up to have the same responses, the same advantages, the same resources. And then we're really competing on an equal plane. This isn't like
okay, thank you. So I'm going to give you each another 30 seconds. I'm hoping the timer can do a 30-second timing for each of you. If not, they can put up the minute and a half, and we'll just at 30 seconds stop. But I just wanted to repeat the question. The question is related to downtown rehabilitation. This is not meant to be a personal attack on anyone's opinions or ideas. It's just specifically related to your work on the SRA. So, Jonna, with that in mind, 30 seconds to you.
Equity is conflated to mean equality, and they're really two separate things. Equality is giving everyone an equal opportunity to reach the same goal, whereas equity is you're oppressing one group in order to push another group forward, and that I don't believe in. I want to see the best person for the job. I don't think anyone can argue with that. That's obviously what you want. You don't want to fly in a plane with somebody who was chosen, who was 10th in their class, but they have the
Okay.
right color skin
Okay.
or race.
30 seconds. Thank you. All right,
I
Rachel,
found
30
that-
seconds to you.
Thank you. I find that description of DEI pretty offensive. A DEI is just realizing where the structural advantages are. Again, it's not about race. It's not about gender. It's not about anything. And no one gets hired because of that. It is originally, please be quiet while I'm speaking. Originally, what it is you don't realize that your talent pool that you're drawing from is limited. And so DEI gives you a wider lens to understand where the talent is. Of course, it's going to be based on merit. That it is disgusting to say otherwise.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on to a new topic. Rachel, you're going to start. This is our last question, actually,
Okay.
and then we'll go to closing statements. So, Rachel,
Mhm.
what kind of assistance can the Community Reinvestment Act provide to revitalize downtown? This is to Rachel.
Yeah, timekeeping. It still says stop.
Oh,
Okay,
yep,
thank
there
you.
you are.
I think basically we should take every sort of resource that we can get so that we're not burdening our taxpayers, especially if the state grants and the federal grants, often they are coming from our own tax money. And it's being returned to us in a way that we, at a scale that is far greater, like tens, hundreds, thousands of times greater than the actual tax we do. If we're not going to take advantage of that, we're just harming ourselves. We're harming the people of this town. Everyone who wants to work for property tax relief or making sure that we're not burdening the people. If we don't indulge in the kinds of grants that are being offered to us, the kinds of grants that we apply for, that Pam McCarthy does a great job applying for, then we are actually hurting ourselves. We are basically telling the taxpayers, well, we don't like this idea, so we're going to get you to pay the extra money on both state. Why would you turn down assistance? I really think that being too proud or too stubborn to understand what a good boon it could be to the town is very short-sighted, and it's going to end up in Stoughton becoming a smaller, worse place for people to want to invest. I want us to be a community.
Thank you. And Jonna.
I think we often put, I don't see the time, but that's okay. We often put the cart before the
there we
horse
go.
because we're always trying to get, one of the officials said, oh, you have to have a lot of people in the town before you can start having infrastructure or entertainment or restaurants. I don't believe that, because if you don't have the infrastructure in place, for example, you have overload on traffic. If you don't have if you have too many houses and too many people, then you get overburdened with the schools, and then you can't to educate the children properly. So I think we're totally in, there's a big problem with us putting the cart before the horse. And the issue of grants, I think, is really something that people don't realize. It sounds wonderful, you're getting free money, but there's hooks in that for getting that money. You have to abide by certain stipulations, and maybe those stipulations are not in the best interest of the town, or maybe they're not what the town wants. For example, with the MBTA, there's a lot of density with having a lot of extra people and a lot of housing, but it's adding to traffic, it adds to crime. I mean, there's so many other factors. You have to take things on a trajectory and look at them properly. You can't just say, oh, it's free money, so I'm going to grab it. You have to look at what the cost is, because there are hooks in it, and that can affect how the money is spent, but also how it affects the community and the people that live in the town because of what the money is used for, and because you're using money that you have.
Okay, thank you. So that was our last question, and we are heading to closing statements now, which are 1.5 minutes each. We're going to go in the reverse order from the way we started. So, Jonna, you go first. 1.5 minutes to you.
Okay, I want to thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for holding and hosting this event. I really appreciate that. I know how much energy and it takes, and it's a volunteer thing, and I really appreciate it. And I want to ask you for your vote on April 8th. My name is John Rosenblatt. I want to do what is best for the town and all of the constituents. I don't take it lightly that being part of a 5-member board that has eminent domain powers won't be challenging to find a balance between all the perspectives, but I will do my very best to listen to everyone and anyone, because every side needs to be heard. And I've experienced being excluded, so being in the town, I feel I want to be heard, and I'm sure other people feel the same way. Working together is so important, and even opposing views can teach us things. And I'm always open-minded to that, and I wish more people in the town would be. I will always challenge your views, but I will never attack the person. By voting for me, you will gain a member of the SRA who has perspective and leadership necessary to work with other stakeholders for the best solutions for all the town residents. I want to pursue common sense, financially responsible plans of action regarding urbanization following the GFOA policies would be a good plus. And I want to keep Stoughton the quaint town it is before it completely slips away from us.
Okay, thank you. And Rachel, a minute and a half to you.
And I'm so grateful to League of Women Voters, and especially Susan, thank you. Jonah, thank you. Select Board candidates, thank you for allowing me to really mess up the schedule last minute because of the emergency. I think that I think Jonah is actually right in a lot of ways about having to keep our eye on the ball. And that's the way that you make a difference, and not dropping something by the wayside in an arbitrary or capricious manner. So my experience is, I think everyone can have good ideas, and I'll work with anyone who has a good idea, no matter what. And what it needs is like a lot of attention and focus to bring it into detail. For example, after the vote last June on this elementary school, I listened. I listened to a lot of people who voted no, and a lot of them were saying it's because it's not fair to seniors to ask them to pay more of their taxes out of their fixed incomes. And so I started looking around for programs that would help them, and I started just posting them on Facebook and telling my friends about them and commenting very annoyingly on Facebook, I'm betting. And while I was looking through this, the town manager asked me to help with the presentations coming on. I figured out that some of Stoughton's asset and deferment income limits are way too low. I mentioned this to him, the select board. There's going to be articles on the warrant to expand that to a lot more seniors. And I'm really proud of that. That's what one person can do just on their own. The SRA can do so much more with us all focused on doing that.
Thank you. And voters of Stoughton, on April 8th, you will choose one of these candidates for a seat on the Stoughton Redevelopment Authority. And I'd like to close this forum by thanking all the candidates for their participation in our democratic process. Please visit stoughton.org for more information on the election. We hope you found this candidate forum informative. And on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Sharon Stoughton, we thank you all for attending and want to encourage you to join the League of Women Voters. Please visit lwvss.org to find out more information about the League of Women Voters. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.